Hey guys, welcome to the 7th part of What If Deku Could Use 100% One for All. Last time we left off after the combined effort of Deku and All Might to beat All for One, locking him up for good. With everyone caught up, let's begin. After the rescue operation is over, Deku is also taken into questioning by the police, for using his quirk to cause injury without a license, however due to the pure intentions of Deku's actions. And some influence from All Might and UA, Deku gets away with a slap on his wrist, being suspended from UA and put under house arrest for 2 weeks. Which is a lot better than the usual punishment for unlicensed quirk use to the scale he did. During that 2 weeks, UA introduced the dorm room system to protect the students, and watch over them to try discover if there is a UA traitor. Because of this, Aizawa and All Might go house to house, to gain permission for students to move into the dorms, one by one, until All Might arrived at the Midoriya residence. He is quickly invited in, and directed to a seat by a nervous Inko and Deku. Inko reveals that she's against the dorm system and wants to pull Deku out of UA High School altogether. Then going on to explain that she's worried because Deku has been put in danger several times since enrolling at UA High, and injured while fighting alongside him. Inko then reveals that she is worried this will lead him down the same blood-filled path as he had while being the symbol of peace. Deku is shocked by his mother's revelation and rushes to his room, realizing this is the consequence for ignoring his mother's feelings up to this point. Deku then returns with the letter Kota penned to him for saving his life, explaining that it doesn't matter what hero course he attends because he's a hero for saving Kota. Moved by the maturity on display, All Might transforms into his muscular form and bows before Inko and Deku, apologizing for allowing harm to come to Deku, and then reveals that he believes Deku should become the new symbol of peace. All Might returns to his weak form and expresses his desire to raise Deku to prevent him from walking down the same blood-stained path to heroism. He asks that Inko looks beyond the current UA and look to a future UA that's trying to change for its students. Finally, All Might asks that she allow him to pour his all into Izuku, and even states he would give his life to do so. Inko is shocked by All Might's actions and falls to her knees. She asks All Might to live properly and raise her son. If All Might promises her that, she will allow Izuku to attend UA High again. All Might promises to do so, and Inko asks that he take good care of her son. Izuku promises to not make his mother worry any longer. Finally, All Might asks that she allow him to pour his all into Deku, and even states he would give his life to do so. Inko is shocked by All Might's actions and falls to her knees. She then asks All Might to live properly and raise her son, saying that if All Might promises her that, she will allow Izuku to attend UA High again. All Might promises to do so, and Inko asks that he takes good care of her son. Deku promises to not make his mother worry any longer. Deku and the rest of Class 1 are prepared to start their new lives at the New Heights Alliance dormitory. Aizawa meets with his students outside of the building, stating that they must start preparing to get provisional hero licenses like they had planned to during the training camp. Then he points out the group that went to save Bakugo and says he would have expelled the entire class other than Toru, Kyoka, and Bakugo under normal circumstances because no one stopped them, but because they lost their symbol of peace. Japan needs as many good heroes as it could get. Aizawa then shows his students around the dorms and they all get settled in. After unpacking, the girls decide to have a dorm presentation contest, invading Deku's room, noticing it's filled to the brim with All Might collectibles. Mina and Toru then force their way into Fumikige's room. Fumikige is annoyed when his peers enter his dark and gloomy setup room. To everyone's expectations, Yuga's room is the complete opposite, completely matching the shining hero's personality. No one wants to go to Minta's room due to expecting the room to be filled to the brim with perverted garbage. Ojiro and Tenya Ida's room are relatively normal. The boys become disappointed with their room presentation and Minta pressures the girls to enter the contest. They check out Kirishima's manly room, then Mezzo Shuge's empty room before they reach Hanta's well-decorated Asian-style dorm. They then rate Shota's room, with everyone is surprised when his room is styled completely differently than everyone else's. Shoto reveals he worked hard to replace the flooring because he can't get comfortable on it. They then finish the boys' rooms by visiting Rakido's. His room is fairly normal, but he has sweets prepared and the ladies love them. They then visit all the girls' rooms, with Sugar Man winning the contest in the end due to accidentally bribing everyone with chocolate cake. Shoto tries to leave, but Yurika brings him, Deku, Momo, Kirishima, and Tenya outside to meet with Zuyu. Once outside, Zuyu admits that she was disappointed that they went off to save Bakugo despite her pleas. She says that she couldn't laugh with everyone because she had such a bad feeling after Aizawa talked to them that morning about it. Zuyu wants to talk with them and share her feelings so that she can go back to having fun with her friends. Eureka says Zuyu isn't the only one who felt that way, explaining that the Room King contest was a way to dissolve that tension. Eureka wishes to start having fun again with everyone in the class, with Deku and everyone apologizing to Zuyu as they try hard to make everything normal again. Over the next few days, while Deku is on house arrest, the rest of Class 1AM work on developing their ultimate moves and continuing to develop their quirks. On the day of the Provisional Hero License exam, Deku is released from his suspension and house arrest, and travels along with the rest of 1AM to the test site at National Dagobah Arena. Much to his displeasure, Aizawa is approached by Miss Joke, who emphatically calls out his hero name. She tries to make him laugh and flirts with him, but Aizawa shoots down all of her advances. Ms. Joke then introduces her students from Class 2 of Ketsubuzu High School. Two of her students, Tatami Nakagami and Yoshindo, excitedly greet Class 1O. Yo introduces himself individually to some students, but Katsuki brushes him off, doubting Yo's sincerity in his words. Tatami asks Shoto for his autograph, having watched him perform at the UA Sports Festival. Aizawa then tells his students to get ready for the exam, and Miss Joke realizes Aizawa likely left out an important piece of information when explaining the exam to his students. The exam participants congregate in a large, rectangular room. Yokumiru Mera, a worker from the Hero Public Safety Commission, addresses the students. He begins by complaining about how tired he is, however he eventually explains the rules of the first test, handing each student 6 balls and 3 targets which they could place anywhere visible. Telling them to move to the next round, all they have to do is be within the top 100 students to hit 3 targets and also not have all 3 of their targets hit. The rectangular room unfolds and reveals the large arena with varying environments. Yokumiru attributes his tiredness to the work spent on the elaborate terrain reveal. In the stands, Emi aka Miss Joke sits near Aizawa and jokes about his fly being down. She then remarks about him having 20 students and that it is unusual he hasn't expelled anyone yet, asking him if he likes his class this year. As soon as the exam begins, the UA students are mercilessly attacked by all the other schools teaming up to crush them, with hundreds of balls being thrown at them. However, Deku uses a Manchester Smash to blow all the balls back to them, disqualifying over 300 participants and passing the test in the first few seconds. Before the test could end, the rest of 1AM managed to also pass the test, making it to the second round. The 100 students who passed the first phase of the exam are then tasked with rescuing members of the Help Us company who are trapped in the disaster zone. Deku believes this scenario was inspired by the one during the Kamino incident. Tenya says that there were many casualties while their group was focused on rescuing Bakugo, and Deku states they will need to do their best. The scenario is that a villain terrorist attack has destroyed the city and there are many civilians in need of rescue. First responders have been delayed because of destroyed roadways, and it's up to the heroes to save as many lives as they can. Deku notices an injured boy crying by himself. He and many of his classmates approach the boy and Deku says the situation is bad. The boy yells at Deku and says he's lost points for not comforting the victim first. He then reveals that the Help Us company workers score the students based on the efficiency of their rescue operations. Nagamesa clears an area for the first responders to land at, and Yo creates a first aid station for the injured. When it comes to saving lives, experience allows the second-year students to stand out. The boy explains to Class 1 that they need to help prepare the situation so it goes smoothly when emergency responders arrive. Saying something like this is bad won't comfort the injured. Deku realizes this is why All Might always smiles and says hope has arrived because I am here, when he saves people. Frustrated with himself for knowing better, Deku hits his head and puts on a brave smile before carrying the boy off to safety. Now being in the right state of mind, remembering the crisis in Kamino, Deku moves around the city with efficiency, checking on civilians. Using Black Whip to remove rubble trapping them and to take them to the first aid station, with a smile on his face, reminiscent of All Might. Gang Orca radios Yokumiru and finds out that the test is going well so far. The number 10 hero makes his move and invades the arena. All students are now tasked with continuing rescue operations while suppressing Gang Orca and his men, who are acting as the terrorist villains. Aizawa comments that this situation would be difficult even for real pro heroes. Gang Orca questions whether the students will protect or fight. Before anyone else could jump into action, Deku had already used Float, Black Whip and One for All to arrive in front of the terrorist leader, wrapping him in Black Whip, restraining him. punching the number 10 hero in the chest, knocking him out before he could even attack, then using a Texas smash to stop all the cement projectiles fired by the underlings. Reflecting it back onto them, blowing them back and trapping them. Shortly after, the exam ends, and everyone who normally gets a provisional hero license passes as usual, however with the addition of Shoto and Inuzuka. Meaning Bakugo was the only person from UA to fail this year. Luckily for him, and all the others who failed the second test, all those who failed can still get their hero licenses by attending a 3-month-long remedial course. That night, Class 1A prepares to resume regular classes the next day. While most of the students get ready for bed, Bakugo confronts Deku and tells him to meet out front. Once everyone is asleep, Bakugo leads Deku to Ground Beta where they had their first combat training at UA. Bakugo then reveals that he has figured out that All Might and All for One both have the ability to pass on quirks. Deku had already admitted to Bakugo that he got his quirk from somewhere else. So Bakugo ultimately surmises that Deku has become All Might's successor because of his reaction to All Might's last message at the end of the Kamino incident. Deku doesn't deny it, in fact, he knew Bakugo would ask since he confronted him at the dorms. Seeing that All Might has acknowledged Deku over him, Bakugo suggests they fight. Bakugo then charges at Deku, firing a massive explosion towards Deku, however Deku gets a stabbing sensation in his head before the Bakugo had even started to charge him, alerting him to dodge. Activating Danger Sense for the first time. While Deku continues to easily dodge Bakugo's attacks and pleads for him to stop, a robot alerts Aizawa of the fight, so he prepares to go scold them. However he is stopped by All Might who volunteers to stop the fight. Deku continues to try and de-escalate the situation only for Bakugo to try and strike him with multiple explosions. Bakugo recalls their childhood and how no matter how much he beat Deku, he always right behind him. Enraged that Deku isn't taking him seriously, Bakugo demands Deku fights too and charges him again. This time Deku counters and knocks Bakugo to the ground. Deku tries to help him up straight after, but Bakugo refuses his kindness. Bakugo begins to get emotional and tells Deku to stop resisting the fight. He asks why a small fry like him got acknowledged by All Might while he puts himself at fault for All Might's retirement. This revelation deeply shocks Deku because he hadn't realized Bakugo had been carrying this guilt since Kamino. Even though Izuku believes this fight is meaningless, he realizes that he's the only one who can accept Bakugo's feelings. He then kicks Bakugo in the face and states that it's good that he can test his new quirk on him. Deku firmly claims that he won't hold back if they're going to continue to fight. Despite knowing each other for so long, this is the first time Deku and Kaken have openly talked about their feelings to one another. Bakugo continues his assault and tells Deku that he can't stand how he has always been on his back like he's looking down on him. Hearing this, Deku reminds his childhood friend that he looks up to him because he wants to surpass him. Impassioned, Deku claims that he was closer to All Might's level so he had to work hard to get stronger. He then kicks through Bakugo's guard and passionately exclaims that he has always been chasing after him because he's amazing. The duo exchange quick and powerful attacks. Deku internally thinks that he tends to spew insults during a fight and admits he got this from Bakugo because, to him, he's the incarnation of victory. They collide in midair and Deku takes Bakugo off guard by using float to stop himself before the attack could land, pulling himself down with Black Whip, dodging a massive full power explosion. While grabbing Bakugo by the feet, Deku proudly says that he wants to beat the incarnation of victory so that he can live up to All Might's expectations, launching him into the ground. Restraining him with Black Whip, winning the fight. All Might appears and tells the boys to break it up. Bakugo asks why All Might chose Deku and the retired hero explains despite being quirkless he was more heroic than anyone. Bakugo then says that he always wanted to be strong like All Might but ended up being the reason he retired. All Might comforts his student and tells him that he would have lost his powers eventually regardless as he embraces Bakugo and tells the young boys that they need to focus on both being a hero that wins and a hero that saves people. While on their way back to the dorms, Bakugo states that there was one thing that still didn't make sense to him about Deku's quirks and it originating from All Might. And that is his ability to possess multiple quirks that All Might could never wield. All Might and Deku then explain the whole story of One for All to Bakugo, and how it also stored the quirk factors of the previous users, with it only just becoming strong enough to activate them after he inherited the quirk. Back at Heights Alliance dorm, Aizawa restrains the tandem and punishes them for breaking the rules. All Might tries to calm him down but Aizawa gives them house arrest anyway. The next morning all classes resume and the rest of Class 1 learns of Bakugo and Deku's bout, teasing the boys about it before leaving them to clean. After 3 days, Deku hands in his written apology to Aizawa and resumes class as usual. On the first day back at class, Deku arrives, angrily apologizing to the whole class for his delinquency and to Tenya for disappointing him. Deku then tells him that he will catch up with everything, much to Kirishima's approval. After a while Aizawa arrives, and says that they will now go into more detail about the internships. He brings in 3 students who have experience with internships, introducing them as the top 3 students in the hero program, the Big 3. The Big 3 then introduce themselves, and Mirio Togate suggests that they have a sparring match to show the benefits of the internships and to inspire them to reach higher power. Everyone moves to Gymgama where Class 1 are all at once against the lone Mirio. Tamaki tells Mirio he shouldn't do it because words should be more than enough to explain. Nighteye tells the class there was a UA student that nearly stopped trying to become a hero because of all sorts of problems. Fumikage and Kirishima suggest they don't need a handicap when they've fought against pros and villains alike. Mirio asks one of them to step up and Deku accepts the challenge. Class 1A's close combat team tries to surround Mirio, but everyone is taken by surprise when Mirio's clothes suddenly fall off his body. Deku tries to exploit the openings in his opponent's defense but his kicks go clean through Mirio's physical form. The other students launch an ambush but Mirio swiftly appears behind everyone. The students believe he warped using his quirk and Mirio attacks the long-range fighters. Tamaki comments that Mirio's quirk isn't the power to envy, instead people should be jealous of Mirio's skill. After training with a certain pro, Mirio was built up into the most powerful hero. Mirio effortlessly knocks out more than half of the students in Class 1A. The remaining conscious students discuss the nature of Mirio's quirk, whether it be the ability to phase through things or to warp. Before Mirio could attack again, Deku rallies his classmates and they take a stand to counter-attack. Mirio travels through the ground and appears behind his opponents. Deku correctly predicts Mirio's tactics and delivers a swift kick to the head but Mirio phases through Deku's body and attempts to beat him with a super move called Blinder Touch Eyeball Crush. However, Deku feels a sharp pain in his head due to danger sense warning him of the incoming attack, and activates smoke screen to blind Mirio. Deducing that the third year relies on his eyesight to correctly time his attacks, managing to make Mirio retreat, instead he proceeds to subdue the rest of Class 1A. Now with everyone else on the ground, Deku can finally let loose, using Black Whip to create a rotating whipping attack around him, which Mirio manages to phase through for a while. However, Deku reminds him that he has to deactivate his quirk eventually, with Mirio also realizing that, running out of oxygen. After holding out for a while, Mirio finally releases his quirk for a second, planning to reactivate it after he catches his breath, however Deku manages to appear before him within that time, punching him in the chest, knocking him out. Afterward, Mirio apologizes about being naked and asks the class if they have a better idea about work studies. The class wearily respond that they've learned nothing and just got beat up. Mirio asks the class if they think his quirk is strong. They reply that his quirk is too strong and ask to learn the nature of it. Nighteye reveals his quirk is called permeation, explaining how it functions and how much work he needed to put in to make it suitable for hero work. He had to learn to use his head to fight and predict his opponent's moves. Mirio gained these skills through experience during work studies with pro heroes. Mirio explains he fought Class 1 so they could learn through experience as well. At hero work studies, the students will be treated like sidekicks rather than guests and can go through some crazy events. Mirio encourages the first years to participate even if they're scared so that they can grow stronger. Back at the dorm, Deku decides to call Gran Torino to inquire whether he would be interested in taking him on for the hero work studies. However, he declines due to working with the police to track the league. He then tells the Deku to ask All Might to introduce him to his old sidekick, Sir Nighteye. After class, Deku asks All Might to introduce him to Sir Nighteye but All Might refuses because he doesn't think Deku necessarily needs to participate and he's not exactly on good terms with Sir Nighteye. Deku asks All Might to reconsider but he still won't introduce him. Instead, All Might calls Mirio to his office. Mirio arrives and asks why All Might needs him to do it and All Might replies that he can't face Sir Nighteye right now. Mirio asks Deku what kind of hero he wants to be and he says he wants to be the greatest hero who can win and save everyone. Hearing this, Mirio agrees to help Deku and says he thinks Sir Nighteye would like him. On the day of the work studies, Deku rushes out of the dorms in a hurry and Mirio takes him to the Nighteye agency an hour away from school. Mirio warns his junior that Sir is very strict and he must do his best to try and make him laugh before the end of the day. Sir Nighteye holds humor in high regard and Deku must impress him on his own without too much of Mirio's help. Deku enters Nighteye's agency and is shocked to see Nighteye torturing Bubble Girl with his tickle machine for not making him laugh. Sir Nighteye glares at Deku and he tries to calm the mood by making his face take on an expression akin to that of All Might's. Mirio is shocked by Deku's one and only plan. Unimpressed, Sir Nighteye doesn't laugh and asks if Deku is making fun of All Might and claims All Might's wrinkles are completely different. Deku is then asked to leave, but he explains he imitated the face of All Might's following the Vinegar Riverbank incident. They discuss the incident and All Might's interview and Nighteye asks if Deku was testing him. Meanwhile Mirio releases Bubble Girl from the tickle machine and admits he's impressed with Deku's first impression despite failing to make Sir Nighteye laugh. Sir Nighteye asks Deku to present him with a contract and explains the difference between the hero work studies and the week-long internships. Deku wants to participate so he can stand out but Sir Nighteye refuses to stamp his paper. He claims Deku brings no benefit to his agency and asks how he plans to be useful. Sir Nighteye challenges Izuku to prove his worth using actions instead of words. Deku has 3 minutes to take the stamp from Sir Nighteye so he can make the contract official using his own hands. Mirio and Bubble Girl are then asked to leave. Not knowing the exact specifics of Sir Nighteye's quirk, Deku activates smoke screen to block Sir Nighteye's sight, hoping that he couldn't use his quirk to see him. Not wanting to damage the All Might merch, Deku only uses 45% one for all, making sure to evade all the merchandise, diving at Sir Nighteye trying to take the stamp. Despite Deku's speed, Sir Nighteye initially manages to predict and evade all Deku's attacks. However after a while and Deku increasing his percentage and using Black Whip to decrease the size of the room for Sir Nighteye to evade, Deku manages to take the stamp, proving himself as worthy for the position. While on patrol with Mirio, a little girl covered in bandages with light bluish-grey hair and a horn runs into Deku's leg. Noticing this, Deku crouches down and apologizes, asking the girl if she was okay, outstretching his hand to help her out. However upon seeing Deku's hand reaching towards her, the little girl was scared. Noticing this, Deku holds back on helping her up, allowing her to get up by herself. Deku would then hear a voice coming from an alleyway, calling for Eri. Deku would then look up to see a man fitting the description of the villain leader of the Yakuza group Shihasekai, who Nighteye was investigating. He would then notice that Eri was getting more scared as Overhaul came closer, so hugged her, while allowing Lemillion to handle the talking, with Overhaul claiming that Eri was his daughter. Deku would then ask Overhaul why Eri is covered in bandages and scared, with Overhaul lying saying that she is clumsy and falls over a lot, and is scared because she doesn't want to be scolded. They would then walk into an alleyway, where Overhaul would start to remove his glove. Noticing this and not wanting the heroes to get hurt, Eri ran back to him, allowing Overhaul to escape, due to Lemillion stopping Deku from fighting him. When they get back, Deku is sad about allowing Eri to continue to be abused because he didn't fight for her, vowing to save her. Over the next few days, a meeting is held with tons of pro-heroes, to locate the Shihasekai base. On the day of the operation, everything goes practically the same, until Deku takes over from Lemillion after he loses his quirk, and instead of allowing Nighteye to take over, Deku continues fighting, taking Eri from Overhaul within the blink of an eye, breaking both of Overhaul's arms in the process. Noticing the gap in their strengths, Overhaul would use his quirk to fix his arms and fuse with the Shihasekai members near him, becoming a powerful giant flesh monster. However, despite this, no matter how many spikes Overhaul sent at Deku, he easily dodged, kicking him into the air, constantly destroying Overhaul's body as it reforms. Using multiple consecutive 100% smashes to destroy Overhaul's fused body, and to knock him out. Shortly after the battle had ended, Eri's quirk would go crazy, starting to rewind him, however due to Overhaul already explaining her quirk to him, Deku managed to activate 1,000,000% one for all in time, constantly breaking his body the same rate that it was getting rewinded, until Aizawa arrived, erasing her quirk, saving Deku. After a few days, Deku was allowed to visit Eri, alongside Mirio, where she thanks them for saving her. However, the heroes quickly realize Eri can't smile, so Deku invites her to watch the UA Culture Festival. On the day of the festival, despite having Black Whip so no need to replace the broken rope, plot demands he does. So he goes to the shops before the festival, and while there he encounters a gentle criminal. Upon recognizing him, Deku would bind him with Black Whip, forcing La Brava to activate her quirk Love straight away. However, the power increase wasn't enough to resist Deku. So he was arrested and Deku arrived to perform at the festival on time, getting to see Aries smile. After training for a few weeks, Class 1B and A would have a joint training battle, with all the battles going nearly the exact same until Deku's team's match. Due to Deku being significantly stronger than anyone else, Deku would be singled out by Class 1B, and would have Monoma attempt to distract him, while the other members of Class 1B take out his teammates. While Deku was out in the open to draw them out, he would feel a stabbing pain from danger sense, alerting him to an incoming attack, dodging multiple flying objects, allowing Monoma to make contact with him, copying his quirk, activating it straight away. Upon seeing this, Deku tried to warn him not to, remembering that an untrained body would explode from using the quirk. However, Monoma wouldn't listen, attempting to use 100%, but due to Deku's quirk requiring stockpiled power which Monoma can't copy, it didn't work and Deku managed to bind him with Black Whip, putting him in the prison. He would then reunite with his team who had been defending themselves against 1B, activating Smoke Screen to blind them, using his hearing and danger sense to avoid incoming attacks, binding them all with Black Whip, taking them to the prison, winning the battle trial. Okay guys, this is the end of the 7th part of What If Deku could use 100% one for all from the start. If you enjoyed this What If, please consider dropping a comment, like, subscribing to the channel and turning on the notification bell to be notified about all What Ifs I upload. With this out the way, this is Demonic Saiyan saying bye.